Hello and welcome. I'm Chandan Lahiri from OTA Survival School. We are going through some pretty tough times around the world. Something which started in China a few months ago has now gripped the world. Almost 200 countries around the world are suffering from the coronavirus, also called the COVID-19 ailment or disease or illness. There's no known cure. People around the world are struggling to prevent themselves from contracting the disease. And I thought this was a good time to not talk so much about the coronavirus and the COVID-19, but living through a lockdown, something that many places around the world are witnessing increasingly in many, many cities and towns around the world, many countries around the world are living through a lockdown to prevent the spread, the community spread of this disease. But the reality is we are living through a lockdown, almost like a curfew. And how do we deal with it? How do we stay safe in a situation where we are confined to our own homes? We can't step out. So how do we live through that? This is about that. It's not so much about the coronavirus. Let's look at the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has engulfed the world. It is a global pandemic and there's no known cure. Governments around the world are trying to contain the spread. It's transmitted from human to human. It does not transmit by air, but it's human to human through contact, through body fluids. Social distancing is now the new buzzword. United we fall, divided we stand. That's what a lot of people are saying. We have to keep distance between people, at least 3 to 6 feet between two individuals. Increasing number of places are under lockdown around the world. In fact, India, all of India, that's almost 1.5 billion people are under lockdown for the last couple of days. Governments are dealing with trying to get testing kits. There aren't enough ventilation machines. Because once the disease progresses in a person, it is acute respiratory disease. So the need for ICU beds with ventilators is extremely important, and the governments are trying to organize enough number of ventilators. Increasing hospital beds, augmenting the medical infrastructure, because hospitals are getting inundated. They are reaching capacity. In many places they already have. And people say that we are still in the beginning of this pandemic and we haven't seen the peak yet. It's going to go up and rise over the next few days and weeks. In fact, according to the Voldometer website, and that's the source there, voldometers.info/coronavirus, the data here is March 25th, 2020 at 21:41 hours Indian Standard Time. The confirmed cases of coronavirus is 445,853 around the world. Almost 20,000 people have died and a little over 100,000 people have recovered. And if you look at the list of countries, it's currently led by China. It started there. More than 81,000 people are affected by the coronavirus. And even small countries, there are about 200 countries on this list. And it's all over the world. Nobody is safe, not rich, not poor, and it doesn't differentiate between caste, gender, sex, whether you're rich or poor, where you live, whether you're white, black, brown, yellow. It doesn't differentiate. It's spreading rapidly across the world, and the numbers are going to go up as testing becomes more and more prevalent and more people get tested. There aren't enough testing kits in the world. So as testing increases, these numbers are bound to go up, despite all the activities and everything that various governments around the world are trying to do. Like I said, this presentation is not about preventing the coronavirus, but what to do in case you're in a lockdown situation, in a curfew situation, in a quarantine situation, when you're stuck at home within the four walls of your house. What do you do? How do you deal with that situation? Not necessarily in the coronavirus, but generally in a lockdown situation. What will you do for yourself and your loved ones when in a lockdown? Either you're prepared or you're not. It's either yes or no. There are no gray areas in this. And what will happen is because of the increased pressure on everybody, Essential service providers, who are the most essential at this point of crisis, they also have families. They also have health concerns of their own and their families. They are also taking care of their families. So the number of personnel who are dealing with the essential services, that also goes down. In fact, there are studies which suggest that it goes down to almost 25-30% of the required capacity, where it should actually go up, because you need more and more people handling these essential services. If you and I are not part of the solution, you and I are part of the problem. We need to depend on ourselves and not on others. Look at an analogy. If the boat is going down, that's not the time to learn to swim. You need to know how to swim before you venture out on the boat. Proper planning, preparation, and practice prevents possible problems. You need to be prepared, not scared. Let's look at the grades of SHTF emergencies. SHTF is when the shit hits the fan, and that's when things go south. It's completely out of control. You are outside your comfort zone. Everybody's trying to deal with the emergency. And generally there are 3 grades. These are not written in stone, but there's grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. And I identify them as yellow, orange, and red. If you look at the grade 1 SHTF emergencies, which are the yellow grade, these are largely localized. They are most natural disasters, some terrorist attacks, riots, strikes, lockdowns. It lasts for a maximum of a week or so. Goods are limited for a short period of time. External assistance is available. Rule of law remains largely intact, as does humanity. Humanity also remains largely intact. Casualties are minimal. If you move into grade 2, which is orange, it becomes slightly larger in scale. It becomes less localized. These happen in cases of major natural disasters, wars, economic collapse, terrorism, and it lasts at least a couple of weeks to longer. Trade is disrupted. The end is in sight, but still seems far away. We need to be self-sufficient. There is some population migration that might be seen. Looting and criminal behavior starts showing itself, and there are significant casualties expected compared to the grade 1, yellow emergency. Then when we move to grade 3, which is the red grade of SHTF emergency, these are global, these are long-term. These are things like nuclear war, it's revolution, it's pandemics, it's near permanent. Goods are negligible or non-existent entirely. Currency becomes redundant, non-existent, because the shops are not open. There's no outside assistance or minimal outside assistance. Rule of law kinds of breakdown. The incidences of violence, looting, rape. The casualties are catastrophic. They are large in numbers. And because of all these reasons, one sees mass migrations. Now, what are the kind of emergencies which fall into these 3 grades? Again, these are not written in stone. But if you look at grade 1, these are fires, floods, landslides, mudslides, power outages, terrorist strikes, riots, civil disturbances, curfews and lockdowns, medical emergencies. When these become slightly larger in scale and scope, you move into grade 2, which is orange, and you'll find that there's a lot of duplication in terms of the nomenclature. But these are larger fires, larger earthquakes, floods, landslides, mudslides, power outages which last for a significant length of time, major terrorist strikes, riots and civil disturbance which tend to go out of hand. There are curfews and lockdowns imposed by the government. Epidemics which are not localized anymore. They go outside the boundaries from where they started. And then you get into grade 3, and we are getting into grade 3 in the world, which is a pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic is around the world. It's global. The other ones which fall under grade 3, which is the red grade of SHTF emergency, could be a nuclear attack, glacial melt, inundated coastlines, polar shift, EMPs, etc. What happens in a lockdown? What is a lockdown? A lockdown is essentially an emergency protocol that prevents people from leaving an area. In many cases, in the current situation around the world, the area is your home. You're confined to the 4 walls of your home. Lockdowns can be used to protect people from a threat or other external event. In this case, transmitting the disease to others or contracting the disease from others. Doors are locked such that no person may enter or exit. People must stay where they are, and they may not enter or exit a building or rooms. They have to stay indoors and avoid contact with other people for at least 14 days. In India currently, it's 21 days. All mass gatherings and public events are cancelled. In fact, the Olympics have been cancelled. Restaurants are closed, cafes are closed, cinemas are closed, nightclubs are closed. Public transportation is greatly diminished or non-existent. Currently, it's non-existent. For instance, in India, there are no flights coming into India, and there are no domestic flights flying within the country. Trains have been cancelled. The metro has been cancelled. The public transport system in terms of auto rickshaws, tuk-tuks, taxis, trains, buses, interstate buses, they've all been cancelled. Borders have been sealed. The life revolves around the four walls of one's home, and maybe indefinitely. It's currently for 21 days. Will it be extended? We don't know. This has not happened yet. Much of this has not happened yet, but essential services might disappear. Petrol pumps which are currently open might close down. Marketplaces are currently shut. Electricity might go off. Currently there is still electricity. And if the electricity goes off, there's no water in the taps, there's no internet. Phones become unreachable. You can't charge your phones. Hospitals are currently getting stretched, which is the reason of the lockdown. We are trying to flatten the curve, and instead of a spike in the number of cases reaching hospitals, either infected or looking for tests, we are trying to prolong that over a period of time. And if the law and order starts breaking down, police are barely able to cope, and there's a complete breakdown of law and order. You are on your own. But what about the government? That's why we pay our taxes. Are we serious about this? Anybody who asks this question, I look at them with awe and complete bewilderment, actually. Let us look at some figures. Police strength per lakh population. For those who are unfamiliar with the number lakh, it's 100,000. So this is the figures from 2012. A little dated, but roughly it should be the same. If you look at 100,000 population and look at the number of policemen per 100,000 population, and this is a decreasing number. If you look at all the states, we look at Mizoram, we've got 10 lakh population, which is a little over 100,000. We've got 1,000 policemen, which is the maximum in the country. And as we go down the list, we don't have figures for Telangana yet, but if you look at Bihar, which has got a population of over 1 million, you have 67 policemen per 100,000 people. And in a time of crisis, many of these 67 people, or any of the other numbers of policemen per 100,000 people, they are otherwise employed. They're looking at tackling other issues. So these are averages. So when you look at Delhi, the state that I live in, we got a 1 million plus population. We've got less than 400 people per 100,000 population. So all these 400 people are not going to be available to look after and a particular citizen's needs because they are otherwise employed. So even if the strength is a certain number per lakh population, that number will diminish because the police will be otherwise occupied. We are going through a pandemic, so let's look at beds in Indian government hospitals. This again is a little dated, but if you look at numbers, we looked at the police strength in Bihar in the earlier slide, which was 67 policemen per 100,000 population, and Bihar tops the list here. Almost 8,000 people are vying for that one hospital bed in Bihar. And as we go down the list, Bihar tops the list. But as we go down the list, and Manipur I'm a little concerned with, I don't think this is the right number. But if you look at Arunachal, which is the best of the lot among all the states and union territories, a single hospital bed, and you have 236 people vying for that one bed. So do not depend on the system to cope. You have to take care of yourself and the lives and the safety and the hygiene, the food and every other requirement of yourself and your loved ones. If you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. If you don't take care of yourself and your family, you're up the proverbial creek without a paddle. What would you do in a lockdown situation right now? And many of us are going through this situation right now. We have to bug in and wait out the crisis. We don't have a choice really, because it is government mandated and we are not allowed to leave our homes. Not for a morning walk, not to walk the dog. We just can't leave the house. Notes to myself. This is the SHTF checklist. Not all would apply in this particular pandemic that we are going through, but this is largely a list which is more general in nature. What are the most likely emergencies that one can face? How do we minimize exposure? Do we have a disaster readiness plan? Does everybody in the family know what it is? What about stocking up? Is it up to date? Do we know how to use each item that we have? What about children, infants, elderly, disabled, pets? Are there any special medical considerations? What else should I consider? What are the roles and responsibilities, if any, of all the people who are part of this lockdown in my home? Let's ask you a few questions. How prepared are you? What are the contents of your refrigerator? What is there inside? And this you're looking at when you still have electricity. So you can actually stock up on perishable goods and put them inside the refrigerator. But do you know what's inside it? How many days will it last? What all is there? How many loaves of bread did you buy when you went grocery shopping the last time? How many eggs did you buy? How long will this last? How much rice or wheat do you have at home? Lentils? Other non-perishable food items? Non-perishable being the key word here, because once the electricity goes away, anything which is perishable is not going to last for very long. So you'll need non-perishable food items, which will last a certain length of time beyond the lockdown. When was the last time you used a torch at home? Do you have candles in the house? Matchboxes to light the candles? Lighters? What about baby food? Do you have babies at home? Infants? Do you have enough baby food? All the money you make is nothing unless you can keep your kids warm. Everything you've ever done for your kids is meaningless if they are hungry. Unless you stock up, you are screwed. Things to consider when stocking up. How many days am I stocking up for? For how many people? What about children, infants, elderly, pets? Am I expecting house guests? What if parents or in-laws drop in? What about neighbors, friends? Whatever your answer to these questions, double your stock position. Do you know your neighbor? Yes? No? How many neighbors do you really know? Do you know the names of their family members? Names of their pets? Remember, they will take care of their own before your turn comes. So if they have stocked up and you haven't, they will take care of themselves first. If you have stocked up, you might become the source for their food and water. Do you want to share your food and water with guests? It's up to you and your family to take care of yourself first and foremost. What do you stock up with in a SHTF situation or preparing for an SHTF situation? There are lots of things, like I said, it needs to be non-perishable food. Food is important. So what kind of food? Honey, sugar and salt, rice and wheat, dry fruits, cooking oil, canned or ready-to-eat food, tea, coffee, chocolates, popcorn, peanut butter, milk powder, chewing gum. Then we get into tools, can openers. How will you cook your food? Do you have a LPG cylinder, portable one? Do you have a camp stove? Do you have disposable crockery? How will you store your water? Do you have water containers? How will you purify your water? Cigarettes and liquor. This is an issue with many people, including me. Do you have an icebox or a cooler? Candles we talked about. Torch. Hammer. Knives. Scissors. Generators. Spare batteries. Maybe even a small hand pump. A dry toilet. And sawdust. Toilet paper. Paper towels. Paper napkins. Garbage bags. Sewing kit. Matchboxes. Paper and pencils. Mosquito coil or repellent. Cordage. Indoor games. Spectacles. Gloves, socks, undergarments, sleeping bags, mattress, blankets, pillows, mats, vitamins, prescription medicines, which is very, very important. First aid kit. This is not an exhaustive list. You can keep adding to it. And you're at home, so you're not carrying it on your back. You're bugging in at home, you're quarantined at home. So these are roughly the things that you can stock up for an SHTF situation. Remember, attitude is everything. It is 90% of the game. The state of your life is nothing more than a reflection of your state of mind, as Dr. Wayne Dwyer said. If you do not approach an emergency in the right frame of mind, you are toast. Stress is a given. That's what this changed circumstance is all about. You have to learn to deal with it. If you panic, it will cause accidents and stupid mistakes. The wrong attitude is contagious and can spread to others around you. Worry never solved anything. Address the situation. Remember, any decision is better than no decision. Act decisively. Have a plan B. You have a plan A. Now have a plan B. And plan to change it. You're dealing with an uncertain scenario. Things can go south very quickly. Things can change in a heartbeat. You have to start out with a plan of what to do, and with changing situations, you have to be prepared to change your plans. And don't panic because the first plan didn't work out. Have a plan A, prepare to change to plan B. Remember, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. You can go all the way to plan Z, and then some. Whether it's a quarantine, whether it's lockdown, whether it's a curfew, whatever term you might give it, currently you're stuck at home. And in an extreme situation, there's no water, there's no electricity, there's no gas, no friends, no visitors, no phone, no computer, no Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, or any of these other addictive pursuits. Can't party. What you need to do is sacrifice comfort. You need to prepare for guests, guard against the weather, think of the elderly, children, pets, address medical issues, tackle boredom. Always be situationally aware. Gather intelligence. Listen to what people are saying. Look at what is happening outside your house. Do not expose yourself to physical or environmental or situational risk. Most importantly, do not listen to or propagate rumors. Drinking water. We are getting into summers in India, and it's going to get very, very hot in a few weeks. Drinking water becomes extremely important, particularly if the electricity gets shut off. 2 cases of bottled water is not stocking up. You need to cater to at least 5 liters per person per day. Stock up for at least a fortnight, if not for a month, and treat all water as contaminated. And if it's contaminated, you'll need to disinfect the water to drink. And there are many, many ways of doing that, the best being boiling. Boil the water, get it to a rolling boil, and keep it to a boil for about a minute. You can use potassium permanganate. You can use household bleach. You can use tincture of iodine. Among store-bought items, you can use a SteriPen, you can use a mini soya, you can use a life straw, lifesaver. You can put purifying tablets. You can also use the power of the sun to pasteurize the water and make it good to drink. But treat all water as contaminated and disinfect it before you drink it. You can make stoves. If you've run out of gas, so you don't have an induction cooker or the electricity's gone out, you don't have any other way to cook, you can improvise a stove. You can make a hobo stove. You can make a soda can stove. You can make a cardboard box solar oven. Camping stove. Are these the fastest, the best? No. But it'll get your food cooked. Communications and information become very important in a lockdown situation because you're stuck. You don't know what's happening outside, so you need to gather intelligence. Battery powered or hand cranked AM or FM radio. The phone and the internet, if they're working. Visually, look out the window. To send message, you can use the Morse code, you can use the flag semaphore, which is difficult, but give it a shot. A megaphone to attract attention, maybe a whistle. However, do not clog the system. Everyone is worried. Everyone is trying to gather the same intelligence. With preparation, everyone should know what to do. Do not overwhelm the communications grid. And again, most importantly, always cross-check rumors. Don't believe everything that you get when you're visiting WhatsApp University. For illumination, have a torch, have candles, make matchsticks burn longer, waterproof matchsticks, make a self-feeding candle. You can turn a chapstick into a candle. You can do a soda can lamp. You can buy a hurricane lamp. Get yourself a solar lamp. There are lots of ways to get illumination, even if the electricity is out. Get alternative power sources. Invest in a generator and stock up on fuel. Invest in a good and reliable solar panel combined with an effective power generator. Learn to use it. Know what gadgets will be compatible with the items that you buy. As far as safety and security goes, when things become more long-term, security starts becoming an issue with resources depleting. That's also when the police numbers go down and they don't respond to your calls anymore. Store shelves become empty, markets are closed, violence can erupt. Avoid soliciting help on the streets because you don't know what state of mind the other person is. Self-defense, that's where it comes in. What is self-defense? It is essentially dissuading a potential attacker from attacking you. It is about getting out of a potentially dangerous situation unharmed or as less harmed as possible. It is not about subjugating the other guy or about ego or about winning a street fight. It is about recognizing potentially dangerous situations, understanding human behavior, and reacting to it. Always remember that escape is your first priority when you get into a dangerous situation. You have to get out alive, and you have to get out as unharmed as possible. You can buy another cell phone. If somebody's accosted you and they want your cell phone or your money, you can always buy another cell phone, but you have only one life. Give up your phone or your money or whatever you're carrying. Get away from trouble. But when push comes to shove, take prompt, deliberate, decisive action. You are responsible for your safety. The police are not coming to help. Remember this couplet. How can you hurt the person who is accosting you? Eyes, ears, neck and nose. Throat, groin, legs and toes. I'll repeat. Eyes, ears, neck and nose. Throat, groin, legs and toes. These are the areas you have to focus on when you need to hurt the person who is accosting you. As far as personal and group hygiene is concerned, it's extremely important, particularly for those with existing conditions, with the elderly, with infants, children. You might need to compromise on the basics due to lack of water, brushing for instance, or showers, or washing, laundry, etc. You can use charcoal to brush your teeth. You can sit out in the sun to kill germs instead of having to take a shower. Don't let sweat settle on your clothes. Be aware of ticks, lice, mites, etc. Remember, transportation is limited or non-existent. If you fall sick, hospital beds cannot cater to a majority of the population. Colony garbage will soon become an issue. Prevent flies and other insects from invading your house. Toilets might become unusable. There's no electricity, so there's no water, so the cistern is not filling up, so you can't flush. Human waste can build up pretty quickly. Construct a primitive but functional toilet with a can or a drum or a bucket or the commode itself. But remember, you can use the commode and the cistern to store water in for drinking. There might be health issues. Do you know CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation? Remember, any CPR is better than no CPR. If somebody is having a heart attack, administer it. Figure out whether the victim's heart is stopped or not and immediately administer CPR. Follow A, B, C in reverse order. First, chest compressions, check for breathing and blockage of the airway. Keep repeating that till the person recovers or ultimately the person passes away. Somebody might be choking. Do you know the Heimlich maneuver? It prevents a victim from choking to death. Do not worry about breaking ribs. Apply deliberate, aggressive and jerky pressure. If somebody has become unconscious, put them in the recovery position. It prevents the unconscious person from drowning in his own fluids. Dehydration, we talked about drinking water. This is extremely important. Do not get dehydrated. If you are thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Nosebleed, that might happen when you're in a stressful situation, when it's hot. Let the blood flow out. Pinch your nostrils. Let the blood flow out. Do not tilt your head back for the blood to go back inside your body. That might go straight into your lungs. Don't do that. It needs to come out of your body. Civil disobedience is a possibility. Rule of law breaks down pretty quickly. Shops and stores will get shut. Looters will be on the rampage. Be careful of who you let in through the door. Do not depend on security forces. They have a lot on their hands. And stock up on medicines. You need to be aware of cabin fever. It is essentially a distressing claustrophobic irritability or restlessness experienced when in confined quarters, which is essentially what a quarantine or a lockdown or a curfew is when you're stuck at home. You may experience sleepiness or sleeplessness. It can go both ends of the spectrum. There's increasingly interpersonal distrust among the people that you're stuck with. There's an intense urge to go outside the house. It also relates to boredom from being home alone for an extended period of time. It can result in fights between people confined in the same space. Cabin fever is not a disease, but can lead to making irrational decisions. In extreme cases, some may become suicidal or suffer from paranoia. Just be aware of cabin fever. Deal with boredom. Boredom comes with the territory. You can read books. You can write a book. You can watch television. You can browse the internet. You can play cards. You can play other board games. You can listen to music. In fact, you can learn to play an instrument. You can learn cooking. Try new dishes. Learn bartending. Learn to make that cocktail which you always wanted to do. Do some research on a subject that you're interested in. Maybe you don't even know you're interested in. Just browse. There's Millions of topics out there on the internet that you can do research on. Catch up on education. There are lots of online courses on multiple subjects. Catch up on your education. Nothing else, just sit down and meditate for a few hours every day. Deal with the boredom that will eventually come. Survive and thrive, or succumb and perish. This choice can change your future. Stop wasting time. Stock up, prepare for the eventuality. We are already going through the eventuality, but you can still prepare. Thank you. I hope this presentation has helped you to a little extent on how to deal with these changed circumstances. You are in a lockdown, you're stuck at home. We are in crazy times, stressful times. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. We need to do the best we can. Thank you so much. And we'll see you when we'll see you. All the best. Goodbye.